Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, where every week we talk about how technology is transforming the creative industries. Today on the program, we talk about how the beauty industry is being revolutionized through new innovations. Our senior editor and beauty expert, Johan Magnusson, breaks down the top 3 beauty innovation trends right now. We're going to learn about the latest within virtual tools, biotech, material innovation, and more. I'm Conrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here with my dear colleagues Erik Sedin and back on the program, Johan Magnusson, our senior digital editor and resident beauty expert. Johan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Finally back, and finally beauty and beauty tech.
It's the best day of the year.
Best day of the year. All right, guys, let's just dive into it. I thought this has been, a super interesting and important show to make because we have several projects in the work with regards to what's happening in the beauty industry, specifically beauty innovation. So I wanted to kind of take the temperature of where we are at right now. And who better to do it than our own Johan Magnusson. This is it's going to be a show where I think me and Erik will learn more than ever, but it's also going to be a way to sort of repurpose some of the stories that we continuously write and publish on scandinavianmind.com. It's an area obviously very adjacent to the fashion industry, which we cover a lot, and it's playing a big part in the lifestyle industry at large. So let's just get right into it, Johan. Number one, you want to talk about virtual tools. Set this up for us.
Yeah, so of course the development in beauty tech has gone from, we will later on talk about things like material innovations, and it's of course immensely important. But now what's become sort of like the bread and butter, if you're into the industry, are these new technologies using AI, AR, and so-called virtual try-ons to add a value for the end consumer and to show that you're at the forefront as a brand.
Right, and I mean, I guess one way to look at it is the beauty industry. It's intuitively maybe not associated with virtual tools, because it's so connected to your physical being and the physical look and your skin and hair and everything. But so how is these type of virtual technologies informing the beauty industry?
So obviously one natural step, if we talk about virtual try-ons, is for makeup, to find the right shade and what palette to buy for your next makeup purchasement. So it's quite easy, actually. It's also like quite easy to imagine what it is. It's of course the biggest brands, they've been using this for quite a while. They have they've made huge investments to be at the forefront, and they have partnered with startups and maybe their in-house tech department to develop those tools that help you find the next makeup shade, so to say.
So just to be super clear what this is digital tools. So for instance, your phone, where you can upload a picture of yourself or use the camera to show yourself and find your skin tone, the various products that will affect or be perfect for your skin tone. Is that a way to explain it?
Yeah. So for instance, if you're curious about a new brand, if you've been using the same makeup brand for say a few years, you obviously know which color or which shade to buy. But if you're trying out a new brand, and there are tons of them launching every year because the industry is growing so fast, then this can help you to find the right shade for your concealer or your lipstick, or yeah.
I was gonna ask, do you have any experience of maybe from yourself or someone telling you? Do you know if it actually works that good? Like, and I would imagine maybe like a selfie camera or an iPhone camera maybe wouldn't do that good of a job, but I don't know. Maybe it actually does.
I haven't tried it, and I have actually not asked my industry colleagues how well it works. What I've heard is that the tools are now quite good, also for mobile selfies to help you find the right product, and it's of course getting more and more advanced and easier to use. And it's also a great way for e-tailers like web shops because
Mm.
they obviously carry a lot of different brands. Then they can use the same tool for many different brands.
I actually just realized I actually wrote a little beauty piece once on the site. I rarely do, but I think I did a CES, the tech fair in Las Vegas. I think Yves Saint Laurent, YSL, I'm going to say YSL because I
Yeah.
can't do the French. I think they had like a lipstick robot or whatever, small one, probably the size of a Coke can or something. So you could take a picture of your outfit and you could scan what kind of a red shade your outfit would have. And then it would print a lipstick to match that exact. I'm guessing AI can also be used for more than just the skin and the face, and also taking pictures of other stuff.
Yeah, sure. And
So
it was a great piece, by the way. And as mentioned, it's fascinating how well it works because for such a new and novel technology, it's only
mm,
been around for a few years, and yeah, it's kind of impressive. And of course, the development is quite rapid. And also for physical retail, it's a great tool. So, for instance, here in the Nordics, we have retailers working with it in store as well to help the because of course the staff members they can't help all the customers at the same time if it's a bigger store. So then they can use certain machines to help the customer and to become like an extension of the physical staff management.
So let's talk about examples because this is not only something happening on the global scale. We also have some Nordic examples, right?
Yeah, so before the summer, we covered Revive, a leading Finnish beauty tech startup. They used to call themselves Finland's only beauty tech startup. Now I've come around a few more of them. So, but
Mm.
of course they are the leading one, and they partnered with the Kicks, which is a leading Nordic beauty retailer, and they use this or they offer this tool in store in Kicks flagship store to help the consumers when entering the store. So it's not only like a project in the making, but it's actually happening as we speak.
Okay, this is super fascinating. I would imagine, not knowing the ins and outs of the industry, but what are the positive ramifications down the line with this? Because I just from living with a wife and daughters for the past couple of decades or so, I just see how many products that are flowing, into the beauty cabinet. And I would imagine using AR tools and AR, AI tools, uh, could it have a positive benefit in sort of making the products you buy more exact? Because finding the right product and using it, it's got to be a huge effect on sustainability, right?
Yeah, sure. So of course, for all the actors and players within retail, and especially like web shops, they have, of course, huge problems with the returns.
Mm,
We can have our own episode about the fashion web shops and retailers and their problems with returns. But also, of
mm.
course, within beauty, like if you don't, maybe you click on like three different shades and then you return two of them. So then, obviously, it can help if you have a virtual tool helping you to find a more exact shade. And also, there have been reports that these tools can also help, but that's more like within a few years. Can also help to reduce the stock for retailers, so that it can be more accurate and more precise, obviously, and that they don't have to stock that many products.
All right, exciting stuff. So let's move on to the next trend we've defined here. and that is the developments within biotech. This is a lot happening on this area. But can you define biotech for us to begin with, Johan?
So when you develop ingredients and formulations, you've used yeah, Mother Nature for quite a while. We've of course seen a
Mm.
huge rise for natural beauty, and after natural beauty, it's been clean beauty, especially in the US, but also here in Europe. And clean beauty is a very controversial term because no one has actually defined what it means. But you can say that clean beauty is our version or the US version of natural beauty, so to say. So the next big
So it's
thing,
basically about using less ingredients and that sort of thing, right?
yeah, it's a different way of describing it depending on who you ask. But yeah, that's
Mm.
one of the more common way of using it. Yeah. So the next big step is biotech. So we have used the rainforests, we have used the desert, we have partly used our oceans to find our next beauty ingredients. And what I see now when I travel and when I interview the brand representatives, they look into the ocean. So it's of course fascinating. Those I don't know if you can call it animals, but those living organisms, living uh, which we haven't yet discovered, many of them, like in the oceans, and their way of surviving despite the lack of sunlight, of course. So now
Mm.
the beauty industry, within the last few years, they've tried to try to make use of this and to see if because obviously they can have great properties from surviving in those harsh environments, and hopefully that's the beauty industry's hope, at least we can also benefit from it.
So okay, interesting. So in these in the depths of the oceans, what are some of the innovations and stuff that the brands are finding and are developing?
So one of the one of the first was in the 50s when the biotime discovered live plankton, which they still use. They of course developed the formulas and the products over the years, but I would say that they were the first, if not the very first. And then in the 90s, we saw small developments, and now it's been a rising trend for, like, say, the last 5 or 10 years. But also, it's a bit complicating because uh, when you're interviewing representatives, they're very secretful about their findings because obviously they are
Mm.
it might be patent pending, or it might be ingredients that they want to file a patent on later on. So if the product is not yet launched, then they will only speak about it in sort of describing terms and not the actual product. So but yeah, I've interviewed a bunch of representatives who are currently digging into the water, so to say.
I mean, super fascinating. One of the stories, actually, the interview you did with, I think it was Bioterm on the life plankton topic. One of the numbers we picked up here is that we've only discovered 5% of the ocean, and it represents 70% of our planet. So I bet their hope is that this is kind of really an untapped source of new technologies and new ingredients, and they can become new formulas, right?
Yeah, and also it's interesting when you mention one of the bigger brands because this, of course, demands a lot of resources
Mm.
to initiate such research because it's, of course, very expensive, and that's also probably one of the reasons why we've only discovered so little of it. But then, of course, the potential is huge.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, what many people who are talking about this is, something out of a necessity in terms of sustainability. So, can you give some context to, what the industry is doing from a sustainability standpoint, or what some of the key issues are, and why this plays such a big role?
Yeah, so if we look at biotech, so, right before the summer, I interviewed a Swedish entrepreneur. His name is David Ko Hjalmarsson, and he's been
Mm.
into biotech in Asia. And good to know here is, of course, that Asia is leading the trends all over skincare and beauty, and they're way ahead of both Europe and the US. So he's now founded his own skincare brand. He's even found his own certification, and his point of view was that we tend to look at sort of natural skincare as more sustainable, and in many cases it's rather the opposite. Because it demands a lot of resources to sort of extract the molecules from
Mhm.
natural skincare, while the lab grown or sort of so to say synthetical ingredients and molecules, they come from a lab obviously, and of course it takes resources. But it's not fair to say that natural skincare is automatically more sustainable. So in many cases it might be the opposite. And also, if we look at the bigger picture, of course, just like in the fashion industry, which we cover a lot here at the platform, the production in the fashion industry, it's called the Pier One. It stands for a lot of the way of reducing emissions and the carbon footprint from the beauty industry would be to lower the impact of the production and also the packaging and before it reaches the store or the end consumer.
Mm. So you mentioned Asia, but there are things happening on the Nordic in the Nordic market as well. David Ko Hjalmarsson, his brand is called Tiny Associates, if I'm right. There's also stuff happening over at Lilla Bruket. Can you mention something more about what's happening in the Nordic space?
Yeah, so we tend to be quite fast on the trend. So that's why probably the global brands they look at the Nordics for biotech as sort of like a testing market. I would say I'm not sure, but I can
Mm.
assume that this is the case. And also, when you meet brands here in the Nordics, a lot of them who have established themselves as a sort of natural skincare brand. Take Lilla Bruket, for example. They are a great example of now looking into biotech because they have also realized that biotech is the way going forward. We will have a huge demand for natural skincare. The natural skincare is still growing, and it will probably continue to grow, but it doesn't have to be an opposite between natural skincare and biotech. They can go hand in hand. So, for instance, Lilla Bruket's latest launch, it merges natural skincare with biotech. So they've taken the best ingredients from the Nordic nature, just as they've done before, and which have made them sort of like a global brand. But they've now also added biotech into the formulation, and I think it's one of the most interesting launches of the year, I would say.
I think it's super interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch how this affects branding and the storytelling around beauty products because you can easily understand why words like natural uh, works in a beauty context. If you think of it as something pure, it's kind of the opposite of pollution, the opposite of dirt and all these things. And if you talk about beauty, you want to be associated with something that's natural and environmentally friendly. Whereas beauty tech, technology is a pretty hard word. Um, and definitely something that's not associated with something you want to think about when you're putting things on your skin. Have you seen any example? This is just a question off the bat. Any example where biotech or technology is put on the forefront of the branding or the storytelling around these products? Lilla Bruket is a great example of a brand that has been sort of on the forefront of natural beauty for several years. But how does it look on the branding front?
Yeah, so David's brand, Tiny Associates, it's one great example, and we have seen a few, and I would say perhaps startups who have used biotech. And also the likes of Biotherm, of course, because they've sort of established biotech or blue beauty, so to say, as their special thing and their specialty within beauty. But maybe we're a little bit too early on this, because for the end consumer, it's still a rather new way of describing beauty. So
Right.
the end consumer still is still attracted a lot by sort of like, so to say, clean beauty, and he or she knows what that is. So the end consumer needs to be more educated on biotech before it gets more established, I would say.
So you have increased knowledge. Definitely, it's super interesting. And just as a note on Tiny Associates, which is a very fascinating new young brand, the logo is actually a pixelated font, which that's signaling technology in ways that I just haven't seen in the beauty industry before. A pixelated font, very much on the opposite spectrum of what's natural.
I want to add one more thing, and what I find very problematic, and what makes my industry colleagues and also the industry uh, finding sort of clean beauty so problematic. You mentioned it briefly, but it's this thing that the opposite would be dangerous for us. So if it's not
Mm.
natural, then it's poisonous or dirty. While especially here in the EU, we have very strict regulations for what you may put into skincare, and the natural beauty brands, they talk a lot about not adding chemicals to the products. But in fact, water is a chemical, and water stands for between 70 and 90% of almost every beauty product. So it's a bit of a problem to communicating it that way.
All right, we'll see which brand is first to use the word chemical in their brand name. Moving on to our last trend here that we want to highlight. We're going to talk about material innovations, both in the actual product, but in packaging. A lot is happening in the packaging space. Obviously, packaging is a huge part of the beauty industry, a huge issue as well in terms of sustainability. Yuan, tell us what's happening.
So there are many different angles to put on this, but what we talk about a lot right now is recycling. And the problems here are many. So if we take Europe, the recycling facilities are different in different countries, which obviously means that the recycling process is different in different countries, and that makes it very,
Mm.
very difficult for the brands being present on different markets to adopt the products. But more and more is about like completely recyclable products. So that's the thing. So plastic will probably never disappear from the beauty industry, but we let's hope that we can reduce it. I interviewed Beauty Disrupted, a new Swedish startup focusing on solid bars for shampoo and body wash, and they mentioned this number that the annual production of virgin plastic bottles for shampoo and conditioner alone is 80 billion.
Oh yeah,
80
yeah.
billion only for shampoo and conditioners made of virgin plastic. So it's a lot of hard work to do.
And they are focusing on bars because obviously you don't need plastics to preserve the product. You know, the reason we need plastics in beauty industry is to preserve the product that it contains, right?
Yeah, and that's also why it's a bit of a struggle to use alternatives to plastic, because the plastic has been around in the beauty industry just like all the other industries for many, many years, and the processes and the value chain is of course established. So if you want to disrupt that industry or that way of, or also consumer behavior, then it takes a lot of resources. We do, though, have a few interesting alternatives also here in the Nordics. From Finland, again, we have Sulapak, working with byproducts from the Finnish forest to produce jars and packaging for and they're obviously like a supplier. So one of the first partners, if not the first, was Chanel, and now they've partnered with a bunch of leading beauty brands. And a few weeks ago, we covered their partnership with the Finnish Lumene. So and they will probably continue their collab. And Lumene is also quite interesting from another point of view. Speaking of recycling, because this fall they've launched the first like mono product, so to say. The first product with a pump, completely made of plastic, at least that I have seen, and also my industry colleagues, they haven't seen it before. So the problem with pumps is that, of course, in the actual pump, it's metal. Otherwise, you haven't been able to make the pump, and that makes it impossible to recycle.
Exactly, which is a very important point. It's the same in the fashion industry. So if you have clothes that are made of cotton and polyester, it's very much harder to recycle than if it's purely cotton or purely polyester. And it's the same for the beauty industry. But so let's go back to Sulapak and explain a little bit what it is. It's made out of wood chips, right? It's not plastic at all.
No, exactly. It's yeah, it's the Finnish way of doing bioplastic.
They use a lot of wood in Finland.
Yeah, they do. For many different occasions. Yeah, and it's a startup, fast growing startup, and I've seen the products, and they actually look delicious and quite superior. So they've done a great job, and they've been around for a few years. So the development of the product has taken quite a long time. So it's good to see it now on the market, and as mentioned, see them partnering with a bunch of leading brands.
Has there been any data on how Sulapak preserves the product versus plastic? Because this is a trade-off as well. I mean, if the product doesn't hold and it doesn't last, I should say, that becomes a sustainability issue as well. If you have to throw it away, etc. If you have to use the products that we actually manufacture, and we want the consumers to use them up, right?
Sure. I haven't seen any data, but of course, we speak here about cosmetic products. So it's not the same regulations as medical products. So that's a big difference. But of course, again, the regulations in the EU, and also the how big their partnering brands are. Those brands would never risk their reputation to put out an unsafe product, or not safe product on the market. So I'm completely sure that it's a perfectly fine product to use.
Yeah, there's a lot going on the regulation side in the EU with regards to recycling, and this is something we'll cover extensively in the months and year to come, I think. Is there anything we'd like to add? We're going to wrap up soon in terms of new material innovations. We've talked about packaging, but are there other stuff happening that we want to bring forth?
So, if we take a futural perspective, what I find especially fascinating now is how science is more and more being merged together with beauty. So, for instance, we've now seen launches using neuroscience to help find the next beauty product or your favorite fragrance. And also, speaking of packaging, I think that 3D printing has huge potential. We have seen a Swedish startup, very successful and award winning, called Allure, which has already entered the market, and they have a really bright future. And it's fascinating to follow them on LinkedIn. And I do recommend to read the story about it on scandinavianmind.com, published before the summer.
Yeah, let's describe what they do. They are 3D printing lipstick, right?
Yeah, to begin with, but I assume that this is only the beginning. And what's quite fascinating is that they're both B2B and B2C. So they are offering their products for end consumers, but also to partner with as a supplier for other brands in order to, of course, reduce their impact.
Yeah, it's super cool. I've seen it done. I made a lipstick for my wife, just 3D printed right in front of me. It was, really quite a sight to see.
How long did it take for it to be finished?
I can't remember, like 10 minutes, something like that. Maybe you remember. I
Wow,
had to
that's
wait a
cool.
little bit, but there's a really interesting, contraption device, lab oriented with tubes and stuff. Obviously, they had different colors and color shades they could print, and I don't know what the material was, but you could see it right in front of you, like a 3D printer with different colored tubes. That's basically the experience.
And also, when it comes to 3D printing, of course, one of the benefits is also that as far as I'm concerned, they're mainly using like renewable materials.
Hmm.
So it's not only that the actual production can reduce the impact, but also, of course, the use of materials.
Super fascinating. Just to end with you, one, is there anything from a personal perspective or just a thought that you would like to see more of, or something that you are personally most excited about in this beauty innovation space?
I would like, for as mentioned, like the natural beauty and the biotech to come to work better together,
Mm,
because it's not an opposite, and they shouldn't be sort of enemies or competitors. But if they work together, we can together make better progress. And also from a personal point of view, I made an interview. We've not been that good in covering hair care and the hair trends. But this week we published a really good feature with Anna-Malin Hallberg from leading Scandinavian hair care and hairstyle brand Maria Nila. And so it's from our Voices format. And we had a great time at their factory in Helsingborg in southern Sweden. And she shared a lot of insights from the current state of hair care and the future of ingredients. And also quite fascinating. She was one of the few who was actually open with the fact that it is a problem for the beauty industry that TikTok and other platforms are it's only going faster and faster with the beauty trends. One week from another, the makeup trend can be completely different, or the beauty trend. But in fact, for the beauty brands, it takes at least half a year, 1 year. It's not rare that it takes 2 years from the initial idea to the product, especially if you want to
mm.
certify it. So Marianela, they use a lot of certifications. So then it of course takes even longer time. So Anna Malin, she was very open to the fact that it is a problem that is also very hard to solve for the beauty industry. That the trends are moving faster and faster, while the development of the product, for obvious reasons, can't go faster and faster.
Well, how TikTok is affecting the beauty industry, that sounds like a rabbit hole to talk about in a different episode. Johan, thank you so
I'll
much
be back.
for sharing your insights. And again, this is just the start of a new focus on Scandinavian Mind on beauty innovation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's just wrap up and look at some of the things that are happening in the week to come, and just promote some of the stories that are up on scandinavianmind.com. Just a note that on Thursday next week, the new factory of Renewcell, the Swedish recycling startup innovator that are recycling cotton, they're opening their new factory in Sundsvall. North of Sweden, and I'm going to be there, so I'm sure we're going to get back to covering that. But Erik, is there anything else we should promote online right now?
Actually, there's one thing outside of our outside of our own platform that I've been looking at this week. I don't know if you guys know about Foot District, the Barcelona-based online
No.
store.
Nope.
I follow them on Instagram just to get latest sneaker review and stuff. They've actually they have an avatar contest. You can go on their website and you can use their whole website to design your avatar, like a really cool avatar. You can choose the brands and choose every jacket. I think they 3D scanned everything, and then you can send in screenshots of your avatar and you can win like prizes. Like, oh, then you can purchase the real clothes than the physical twins on their website. So I've been sitting all night making outfits, sending in screenshots, trying to win. And I was gonna, the more I tried, I was thinking about hoping writing something about it, or at least talking about it on the next podcast, because it's a lot of fun.
Well, let's circle back to that. Also, I wanted to promote our cover story this week was from Riga Fashion Week. I think our contributor Oliver Dahle did a great job at kind of analyzing what's happening in the lesser known fashion weeks of Europe, and we were the only Scandinavian media present out there. So have a look at that, guys. This has been great. Please follow us on Instagram. TikTok is growing. Great job, Erik Sedin, on growing our TikTok following and engagement and discussions we've seen. Also, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. See you next week. Thank you.
See you.
See you.